Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with our longest running and most wonderful guest, Anna Kelly. How you doing, Anna?
I'm doing great. So good to be here.
So something in the Facebook group, our private Facebook group for one rental at a time, came up the other day that I'm going to ask all of my experts about, and that is the notion of recycling capital. It's something I highlight in the book almost accidentally, but now it's something I've come to realize it's really turbocharged our business, and it's a vital thing to understand. So when I say recycling capital, what is that kind of, what do you kind of think of?
I think about constantly moving your money so that it continues to work for you and allow you to take down the best opportunities that are there in today's market using the equity, for example, that you already have in your other properties.
Yeah, exactly. And really what this came to me is kind of a marriage between what you and I've done and Dave Ramsey, right? Because again, when you're out there talking real estate investing, Dave Ramsey comes up all the time. All debt is bad, all of this. And it really came in an example, right? So I started investing with $40,000 after I lost six figures in the stock market. It's all I had. So we bought three houses. The 40 grand was gone, right? We had, and oh, by the way, the three houses were basically over 3 years, right? And I could have started saving and bought a fourth house, but it probably would have taken us 3.5, maybe 4 years to get the down payment, given where we were income wise. That is slow.
Yes.
Instead, I went back and did a cash out refi. Now, obviously, as I fully admit in the book, I did it badly and created an alligator, but I took out the equity. I should have taken less. I took the max, mistake. But then I used that money to buy more stuff, right? I bought 2 more properties. And then I got smart and did that with property 2 and then property 3. And next thing I know, I've got 8 doors. No new capital, right? It was all recycling.
I did the exact same thing, Michael. It's really how I started to grow. So, the first property that we lived in, we fixed it up and we had a little bit of equity left and tried to put it down on another one. And I ended up having to take some of I borrowed for my 401k. So that's another way to take capital and put it down is I borrowed from money that I already had in my investments. And then I started making the payment on that, but it allowed me to put the down payment on the next property. And that property, we bought well below market and we worked for a year to update all those units and get them, where we could start raising the rents, and then had to wait a couple months before the banks would say yes and prove that new rental income. But we took it and we recycled and we put it down on down payments for over and over and over. And while I know Dave Ramsey says, don't do this. And Dave Ramsey is a very smart guy for a lot of new, people that are just learning financial literacy and need a budget and all of that kind of stuff. Highly recommend. But there is a point where having equity sitting trapped in your property really becomes riskier than taking it out and using it. And especially in this environment that we've been in for the last, almost decade, we've had very low interest rates that really are below inflation, below real adjusted inflation and the real prices that we've talked about for the basket of goods beyond what's just in CPI. So if I leave my equity in my building, inflation's eating away at that equity and interest rates are so low. So I can transfer that risk, that inflation risk to the bank and let them take the inflation risk, keep my payment down, take out my cash, and then not lose the opportunity cost of leaving it in there as well. So by taking it out, I'm fighting inflation, but it's that opportunity of where can I put my money to work, not, making nothing, but making myself another $1,000 a month by putting it down as a down payment. And so it was a light bulb for me the first time I knew I could take out equity. Like that's how I'm going to grow instead of having to wait and save, live below our means and save so much to buy the next one. Like you, it would have taken us years and years to do it.
I'd still be working.
Yep. Me too. Yeah. And in fact, because 2009 happened, Michael, the banks suddenly wouldn't give equity loans on investment properties. And so really one of the main reasons that I was stagnated for 3 years is I could not find a bank because real estate was collapsing, right? In the Great Recession, that would lend on investment property. And they certainly didn't want to be in second position, like an equity line of credit. Yeah. So, it was trying to find other ways to take down properties and get creative. But once those banks opened up and said, yes, we'll let you take an equity line as long as we're still in first position. My success in the number of properties I was able to buy skyrocketed because they let me use the equity to continue to grow.
Yeah, one of the things I tried to do in the last 48 hours, because I knew you and I were going to talk about this, is I tried to think, like, I just want to go back to that. For me, it was that first 40 grand, right? People hear the story, the first 40 grand got 3 houses. But I've tried to think about all the times I've recycled that capital from, again, it starts for me in 2002, and now it's what, middle of 2021. That 40 grand has probably been recycled no less than 4, and I would almost say 5 times, right? Either via cash out refis, 1031 exchanges, do rate and term loans, whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
Cash. It's just, it didn't hit me until actually a student asked, we need to hear more about that. Right. So again, the beginning is the hardest, really, like your son talked about in the first one. Once you get by those first couple of years, mortgage pay down, rents go up, you start to have more equity. Then you can just start snowballing this thing. I thought Dane picked that up really well in that first interview.
Yeah, because we've done it so many times. He's seen us, and in the beginning, we bought those alligator properties, Michael. Why? Because we didn't have the money. So we had to buy things that nobody else wanted and put in the sweat equity to learn. But by putting in that sweat equity, we were able to create significant upside and increase in value by making the units nicer, raising the rents, et cetera. So as time goes on, now we can recycle that same money and go buy nicer properties that are already a little more turnkey, and still get in at a good price point, oftentimes because we're coming in with a big down payment. We're getting a really low, interest rate right now, and we're still able to exponentially grow the cash flow. But the other piece of that, in addition to creating equity, and then you've got forced appreciation when you're dealing with multifamily, is the ability to 1031 exchange too. So that's another way that we've been recycling our equity. So some of these properties that we bought early on, in fact, I bought my third 4-unit property, the one I borrowed that money from the 401k. We bought that 4-unit property to be able to sell when Dane went to school. And we said, this is going to be the one that pays for his college.
That's awesome.
So we took a second out on it. We took out the equity to buy another one. And then we ended up selling the property last year for significantly more than what we even thought we could. And it paid off that second. So now we had freed up a lot of cash that will pay for not one, but 2 kids' college education.
Oh, darn.
Right. And then we had another one, and we did a 1031 and exchange it into a much bigger, much nicer property. And just to give you an example of the power of a 1031, we bought a 4-unit building for $375 in 2007. We just sold it for $465, I think. So it didn't go up in a ton in value because they kind of tap out when you're not commercial. But what happened is my mortgage was paid down significantly because it was a 20-year note, and we were in year 13. And we were able to take that equity from the sale price and roll it into $1.5 million property, much, much more rental income. And so we started with that property that we bought with no money down in 2007. And it's now bought us $1.5 million, property, 8 units that bring in $1,400 a month a piece, all because of rolling that equity and recycling it into the next one. So however you have to get your equity, whether it's from a cash out refi, a line of credit, a sell, or, a 1031 exchange, or even selling partnerships into your property if you need some cash and the bank will say no, being able to capture that money and put it into being able to buy another opportunity today and buy nicer and nicer stuff as you grow, it's really powerful.
Yeah. I hope people listen to that again, because again, you get the money. It takes a lot for all of us to save, right? And then once it's deployed, we kind of feel defeated. That's not it, right? Now, as time goes by, mortgages go down, appreciation, cash flow goes up. You can recycle it some way. You can 1031. I think about that second house I bought on Ferris. We put roughly $10,000 down. I think it was probably 11. The equity in that property over the course of 3 or 4 years, I think it was like 2003 to 6 is when we sold it, maybe 7. That resided in an 18-unit building. That 18-unit building, once it's sold, was really, that $10,000 was compounded lots of times.
Yeah, it's amazing. Do you have time for one more example? So I have another example that's super powerful. So someone brought me a property. It was an off-market deal. and it was a 10-unit property, and it had an extra acre on top of where the 10 units existed. So I knew one day I want to build on that, right? But I didn't have the experience or the money to build on it. But I said, hey, I can see into the future that that's going to be the plan for this property. So over the last 2 years, and I bought it with seller second, so I only had 10% down. The 10% was an equity loan from my house, so recycled capital.
Mm-hmm.
The other 10% was a seller finance note, interest only. And then the other 80% was from a loan at a bank at a very low rate. Well, during this time, the pandemic hit, and I went back to the bank and said, rates are so much lower. They wouldn't give me equity at the time, but they dropped my rate 1.25%. So I was able to really reduce my mortgage payment to really increase the equity just by the mortgage pay down, and spent that 2 years fixing up the units, making them nicer. And I knew that this property would be worth, I thought, about $1 million. So I've just decided, okay, rates are super low. I've got at least 300, 400 grand in equity. Went to the bank and it appraised for just over 1.3 million. I bought it for 700,000.
Oh, darn.
So that $500,000 loan that I'm going to be able to cash out is going to pay for an entire down payment on 16 brand new apartments on that 1 acre plot. So really no money down out of pocket, leveraging the equity from my own home with the second, paying down the mortgage to really boost my equity and now take this down. My $0 investment becomes a $3.5 million investment property that will make a significant income over the next however long we own it. And that is the power of recycling equity, using equity from every source that you can, and then cashing it out to continue to grow.
Folks, you want to recycle capital. That's all I got to say. So Anna, how can people follow you, be part of your world?
Great. So if you're interested in investing passively in multifamily properties where we make a true meaningful impact in the lives of our residents, you can find me at greaterpurposecapital.com. And just to follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, I'm at Anna REI Mom Kelly.
Very cool, Anna. Thank you very much for your time. We will talk next week. Enjoy tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a big day for you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be crying a lot, but I know there's going to be a lot of pride in the tears.
There you go. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.